UIC. Freedom the people of need. Hell yeah. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready for broke every chain. That when you free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I feel burn up the fire upon every snake. Me give thanks in every way. God still a look down once see we safe. UIC run the road long time. GLP and PMP I sell we out. Still I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda kill with them catch we and hang we know.
Hello and good evening. Welcome everyone to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. This is L Patterson, President of UIC Jamaica. It is my pleasure to be with you again this evening to talk about a very important topic that could be of interest to all Jamaicans. But let's go on mic check to make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me clearly? Please type yes. So I know you can hear me loud and clear. Please give me a yes if you can hear me clearly. Oh, again, so I'm still having mic trouble again. Audio is muffled. Audio is muffled. Okay. So you can hear me, but for some reason the audio is muffled. Let me see if I can do anything about that. It is plugged in very securely. I tested before I came on to make sure it was working. And so here we go again. This is becoming a ritual. Yeah. How is that? Can you hear me? Muffled, eh? It's muffled. All right, let me see if I can try something else. How is this? Is this any better? Is it okay now? Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3. Is it better now? Okay, good. So it's better. All right. Well, thank you so much for your patience. It seems to be a recurring decimal in terms of trying to get this mic to work, and I have several different approaches to doing that. But thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to talk about republic, and there are two types at play right now. There's a true republic, and then there's a fake republic. And so tonight I want us to talk about the difference between those two to make sure that you understand what is being presented to you when the Prime Minister brings his solutions to the Jamaican people and try to hoodwink us into going for a fake republic, similar to what they did in Barbados and what they did in Guyana and what they did in Trinidad, and in many other countries. They have these fake republic. As a matter of fact, even America is no longer. It tried to be a republic. It started out as a republic, but it has gone awry. I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to show you a video, which I've shown before, but not everybody would have seen it. So I want to make sure everybody sees the short video, about 9 to 10 minutes. And this video is going to explain to you the political spectrum, and it's going to explain to you what a republic is as opposed to a democracy or oligarchy or anything like that. So I want you to watch this video carefully, and then I'm going to go into a bit of explanation so that you'll understand clearly what they present to you when they tell you here's a republic. Because the Prime Minister is now recognizing that the UIC is gaining a lot of traction. People are beginning to become more aware of the need for Jamaica to change the system of governance. And so what they're going to try to do is to give you a fake system change, similar to what was done in 1944, when they made a change in the system from outright straight colonialism to a quasi-colonialism system where they gave the mass of Jamaicans the right to vote, one man, one vote in 1944. And because our people didn't quite understand what was being done to them, they were excited and they cheered and they were so happy to think that finally they were going to have freedom, and that freedom was going to come in the form of having the right to vote. What they didn't understand in 1944 was that even though they were going to vote for a few of their own, so to speak. The governor appointed by the UK, Great Britain, would still be firmly in charge, and that his group of oligarchs, and mark that word, oligarchs, his group of oligarchs would be still firmly in charge, and the little puppets that they would elect from among the people would merely be talking heads and would not be able to make any major substantive change in the quality of life for the Jamaican people then in 1944. Of course, in about 18 years, it was very clear to the Jamaican people that the voting rights was a sham and that nothing had really changed very much. More than that, they were tricked into thinking that there was some form of change that has taken place that would have benefited them. And so, in by 1962, so we're talking about the sugar riots, the labor riots in the 1938 period when the Jamaican people got fed up and so we wouldn't take it anymore, and they started to riot, and they'll burn down things and mash up things and say, we're not take this no more. We want better working condition. We want better living condition. And they were ready to just mash up the place. And you might recall from history that Bustamante realized the situation, ran down there, and threw himself in the front of the black masses and say, shoot me and leave the people, and hijack the movement and got the black people to trust him and to put their faith and hope in him. And then he led them, uh, um, to trust the Bustamante, trust his trade union, and eventually trust his party. In like manner, you had Norman Manley, who was working with Buster at the time initially to seek some level of redress, or so the story goes. And in due course, these two parties evolved with the blessings of the crown, because the crown did not bless Marcus Garvey party, because Marcus Garvey's party was a truly people's party, and so Marcus Garvey now would have really championed the cause of the black man fully. But what they did was to get a bit of a whitewashed situation. So we now had, this whitewashed group called the People's National Party and the whitewashed group called the Jamaica Labour Party, and they were given the blessing and the support of the colonial powers. They have their backroom meetings, have their plans and their discussions, and then they put forward a face to the Jamaican people and win the trust of the Jamaican people. And so in 1944, they carried out a fake election, if you will, gave the people false hope in 1944. And then the people recognized, after about 18 years of it, that this now work, this really now work for we at all. And so, given the additional pressures from the Jamaican people, then they talk about now federation. And so Norman Manley, in discussion with the Crown, with the British people, discussed a a strategy where they would get all of the Caribbean countries together in the West Indies Federation, and they would give them all as a bloc this so-called independence, while keeping them within the Commonwealth, and with the Queen of England as their head of state, and the colonial powers still having their tentacles in our governance and in our economy, and so on. And Norman Manley tried to carry that out on behalf of the Crown, while pretending, of course, to be doing this for the Jamaican people and the other peoples of the Caribbean. And lo and behold, the divide and conquer thing works, because Bustamante then played the devil's advocate on the other side, and he threw a wrench in the spokes, and got the Jamaican people confused about what is right. Should we go federation, or should we do something else? If we go federation, will we become the big fat pig, and all these other small islands would be sucking out all of our wealth, because Jamaica at that time was the leading country within the entire body of the Caribbean. And so Busta was able to divide the people and got them to vote the majority against federation. So Norman and the PNP lost that election. Then they called a general election, and the JLP won that election, and thus continued the partisan divide that would become a natural part of our culture and would work to our disadvantage for the next 60 years. So in total, 78 years, we've now been experimenting with this so-called Westminster model, and the results are very, very telling, damning to be exact. It has cost us tremendously over the last 78 years, causing us massive brain drain, massive theft of our resources, severe lack of development, both human development and infrastructure development, and have kept us behind in a tremendous way. So tonight I want to get into the difference between a fake republic and a real republic. So let's kick this off by a video I'm going to share with you now, and then you're going to learn a bit more about this idea of a fake and a real republic. So let's watch this, 9 or so minutes. I'm going to come back, we're going to talk some more, and I'll take some questions afterwards. So listening carefully.
When Benjamin Franklin exited the Constitutional Convention, he was asked by a woman, "Sir, what have you given us?" His immediate response was, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." Yet most Americans today have been persuaded that our nation's governmental system is a democracy and not a republic. The difference between these two is essential in understanding Americanism and the American system.
Yeah, I don't think you're hearing. Were you able to hear that? Are you hearing? Were you able to hear? Let me know, please. Were you able to hear that a while ago? I wasn't hearing anything on my end. Okay, let me... Oh, you were able to hear. Okay. No, I can't hear it, so I'm going to play it and let you hear. Then we'll go from there. All right, no problem. So let's continue.
When Benjamin Franklin exited the Constitutional Convention, he was asked by a woman, "Sir, what have you given us?" His immediate response was, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." Yet most Americans today have been persuaded that our nation's governmental system is a democracy and not a republic. The difference between these two is essential in understanding Americanism and the American system. Before we discuss political systems, however, it's helpful to address the confusion that has been spread about the political spectrum. Many have been led to believe that the political spectrum places groups such as communists on the far left, fascists or dictators on the far right, and political moderates or centrists in the middle. However, a more accurate political spectrum will show government having zero power on the far right to having 100% power on the far left. At the extreme right, there is no government. The extreme left features total government under such labels as communism, socialism, Nazism, fascism, princes, potentates, dictators, kings, any form of total government. Those who claim that Nazis and fascists are right-wing never define their terms. This amounts to spreading confusion. Toward the middle of the political spectrum can be found the type of government limited to its proper role of protecting the rights of the people. That's where the Constitution of the United States is. Those who advocate such a form of government are really constitutional moderates. So let's analyze the basic forms of government. They are monarchy or dictatorship ruled by one, oligarchy ruled by a few, democracy ruled by a majority, republic ruled by law, and anarchy, which is ruled by no one. In discussing these five, we'll see that they can be narrowed down to even fewer. Looking first at monarchy or dictatorship, this form of government doesn't really exist in the practical sense. It's always a group that puts one of its members up front. A king has his council of nobles or earls, and every dictator has his bureaucrats or commissars, the men behind the scenes. This isn't ruled by one, even though one person may be the visible leader. It's ruled by a group. So let's eliminate monarchy, dictatorship, because it never truly exists. Oligarchy, which is ruled by a group, is the most common form of government in all history. And it is the most common form of government today. Most of the nations of the world are ruled by a powerful few, and therefore oligarchy remains. At the other end, we find anarchy, which means without government. Some people have looked over history and found that many of its worst crimes were committed by governments, so they decided that having no government might be a good idea. But this is a mistake, because as the ancient Greeks stated, without law there can be no freedom. Our founding fathers agreed and held that some amount of government is a necessary force in any civilized, orderly society. In a state of anarchy, however, everyone has to guard life, liberty, and property, and the lives of family members. Everyone must be armed, and movement is severely restricted because one's property has to be protected at all times. Civilized people have always hired someone to do the guarding, a sheriff, a police force, or some branch of government. Once law enforcement was in place, the people were freer. They could leave their property, work in the fields, and so on. In short, the proper amount of government makes everyone freer. There are some who advocate anarchy, however, not because they want no government, but because they don't like what they have. They use anarchy as a tool for revolutionary change. The condition of anarchy is very much like a vacuum where something rushes in to fill it. These calculating anarchists work to break down the existing government with rioting, killing, looting, and terrorism. Tragically, the people living in such chaos often go to those best able to put an end to it and beg them to take over and restore order. And who is best able to put an end to the chaos? The very people who started it. The anarchists who created the problem then create a government run by them, an oligarchy, where they have total power. This is exactly what happened in Russia that led to Lenin taking total power, and in Germany where Hitler's brown shirts created the chaos that brought him to power. But anarchy isn't a stable form of government. It's a quick transition from something that exists to something desired by the power-hungry. It's a temporary condition, and because it isn't permanent, we eliminate it as well. The word democracy comes from two Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratein, meaning to rule. Democracy, therefore, means the rule of the people, majority rule. This, of course, sounds good, but suppose the majority decides to take away one's home, or business, or children. Obviously, there has to be a limit. The flaw in democracy is that the majority isn't restrained. If more than half the people can be persuaded to want something in a democracy, they rule. What about republic? Well, that comes from the Latin, res meaning thing, and publica meaning public. It means the public thing, the law. A true republic is one where the government is limited by law, leaving the people alone. America's founders had a clean slate to write on. They could have set up an oligarchy. In fact, there were some who wanted George Washington to be their king. But the founding fathers knew history, and they chose to give us the rule of law in a republic, not the rule of a majority in a democracy. Why? Let's demonstrate the difference in the setting of the Old West. Consider a lynch mob in a democracy. 35 horseback riders chase one lone gunman. They catch him, and they vote 35-1 to hang him. Democracy has triumphed, and there's one less gunman to contend with. Now consider the same scenario in a republic. The 35 horseback riders catch the gunman and vote 35-1 to hang him, but the sheriff arrives, and he says, "You can't kill him. He's got his right to a fair trial." So they take the gunman back to town. A jury of his peers is selected, and they hear the evidence and the defense, and they decide if he shall hang. Does the jury even decide by majority rule? No, it has to be unanimous or he goes free. The rights of the government aren't subject to majority rule but to the law. This is the essence of a republic. Many Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution, nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." Samuel Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt, because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable. In every case, they ended up with mob rule, then anarchy, and finally tyranny under an oligarchy. During that period in Greece, there was a man named Solon, who urged creation of a fixed body of law not subject to majority whims. But where the Greeks never adopted Solon's wise counsel, the Romans did. Based on what they knew of Solon's laws, they created the 12 tables of the Roman law, and in effect built a republic that limited government power and left the people alone. Since government was limited, the people were free to produce, with the understanding that they could keep the fruits of their labor. In time, Rome became wealthy and the envy of the world. In the midst of plenty, however, the Roman people forgot what freedom entailed. They forgot that the essence of freedom is the proper limitation of government. When government power grows, people freedom recedes. Once the Romans dropped their guard, power-seeking politicians began to exceed the powers granted them in the Roman Constitution. Some learned that they could elect politicians who would use government power to take property from some and give it to others. Agriculture subsidies were introduced, followed by housing and welfare programs. Inevitably, taxes rose and controls over the private sector were imposed. Soon, a number of Rome's producers could no longer make ends meet, and they went on the dole. Productivity declined, shortages developed, and mobs began roaming the streets, demanding bread and circuses from the government. Many were induced to trade freedom for security. Eventually, the whole system came crashing down. They went from a republic to a democracy and ended up with an oligarchy under a progression of the Caesars. Thus, democracy itself is not a stable form of government. Instead, it is the gradual transition from limited government to the unlimited rule of an oligarchy. Knowing this, we as Americans are ultimately left with only two choices. We can keep our republic, as Franklin put it, or we will inevitably end up with an oligarchy, a tyranny of the elite.
Okay, there you have it, and I hope you had a chance to really think about what was being said there. Now, let's get one thing very clear. We're not here advocating America's republic. The video did a very good job of showing the republic issue from the American standpoint. Very few countries have ever really tried a republic. Most have stuck with a form of oligarchy, whether it's outright dictatorship in terms of communism, where a group of people try to control everybody, or socialism, or capitalism, where the business sector tries to control the government and pretend as if they have a free market and then rob us and so on. So this is not advocating any particular country. What I want to do is to make sure that you understand the difference between the spectrums of having full government control of our lives versus anarchy, and how they all interact with each other. So bear with me as I walk you through some key things here. You would have seen a number of this already reflected in Jamaica. You would have seen a constant erosion of our rights and freedoms. You would have seen a constant erosion of our economy as it gradually declines with less and less small businesses, more and more control of the economy by a few businesses, government giving special treatments to some people, assets being moved away from the masses and put in the hands of a few. So you're seeing all of the elements of oligarchy here in Jamaica. Right now, Jamaica is controlled by the oligarchs. You can define them as the elites of the private sector organization of Jamaica, controlling the government of Jamaica together with the outside forces, which by virtue of grants and international arrangements, they've gotten our government to become less and less representational of the people of Jamaica and more representational of special interest groups. One major interest group are the people who just came here the last couple of days. They have maintained Jamaica as part of their Commonwealth system, as part of their banking system, as part of their economic model, and Jamaica becomes a dumping ground for their products, where we stifle our people with poor education. The best of us are pulled out to go work in those other countries, and the vast majority are left here to become retailers and buyers, and that's about it. Um, I have seen a number of comments on here. One person mentioned that look at other countries that are republics. Remember, republic is more than just a name. So calling yourself a republic doesn't make you a republic. And that's why today we want to make sure you understand what a real republic is as opposed to a fake republic. So let me now step back and just take a look at this holistically. All right. So tonight's topic was entitled, Shall We Become a Fake or a Real Republic? And we're going to explore in the next few minutes what is a real republic and why Jamaica is in danger of joining a number of countries, including Barbados, in becoming a fake republic, where all that was done was to change the names and titles, but not the substance of the governance model that we're following. So, as a people in any country, we can choose to have a government that controls us 100%. Or we can choose to have no government at all, which would be anarchy. Or we can seek to find the right balance where government is truly our servant and not our master. Let's be clear. We need government. For without law, there's no freedom. If we don't have proper laws, you cannot enjoy your freedom. If we don't have a government that actually does what it's supposed to do, life can be very scary, as it is now in Jamaica. Our lives are very scary because government is not working. It is not doing what it's supposed to do. And so we live in a very unsafe environment, a very unclean environment, a very disorderly environment because our government is not working. The system of governance is failing us because it is working the way the oligarchs intend. So it's helping the oligarchs. It's making people like Andrew Holness and Mark Golding richer, while the vast majority of Jamaicans are in fact getting poorer. So we can have a dictatorship where um, a group of people or oligarchs control us and dictate our lives. We can even try to have a democracy where the majority rule, which gradually leads to mass corruption, followed by anarchy, and right back to where we started again, which is oligarchy. Or we can have a republic. We can have a republic with the rule of law, which limits government to protect the sovereignty of the individual from both the majority and from any possible oligarchy. Now, that is the key in a republic. A republic is so designed that the rule of law is uppermost, and it seeks to limit government in a way that protects the sovereignty of the individual from both the majority and any potential oligarchy. Notice I said protect the sovereignty of the individual. Now, that's something that you never heard a lot about in school or anywhere, that you are a sovereign person, that you are more sovereign than a state. Instead, what you were taught in school is that the government or the queen or somebody outside of you is more sovereign. And that's why we talk about royalties and all these kind of debilitating and mentally destructive ideas, because the goal is to make you think less of yourself, think less of your power, think less of your rights, and to see others as having superior claim to power and superior claim to rights than you. And so you become subservient. We want to stop that. Yeah? A republic is not a democracy, and a democracy is not a republic. But both have elements of each other. The republic is, however, superior to democracy. Why is it superior to democracy? Because a republic recognizes your individual liberty, while a democracy gives the power to the majority to determine to what extent you are going to be considered a free person. When America established the first really modern republic about 200 years ago, they made the grand mistake of not seeing every single person in America as a free person. They tried to dissect the American economy into free persons versus other persons and versus the indigenous people that were there. And that was wrong. And that's the problem. If you don't create a morally strong argument for your republic, you run into problems. And so the American government, because it was not honest and had full integrity, that country gradually slipped away from being a true republic. But we in Jamaica have a golden opportunity now in 2022 to learn from the mistakes of the past, to learn from the mistakes of the US, to learn from the mistakes of our own leaders here for the last 78 years who have led us down this slippery slope into what they claim is a democracy or Westminster model or whatever they call it. It doesn't matter. The essence of it is that we're being ruled by oligarchs instead of by the rule of law. So merely replacing the Queen of England and the Governor General with a president does not create a republic. It's very important. So don't be fooled by Andrew Holness or anybody, Mark Golden or any political party, which is going to come to you and give you some nice fanciful words and some grand declarations that simply means replacing the titles, replacing the names, but keeping the same old system, even tinkering with a few areas like saying, okay, term limits or so on. That's not enough. For you to have a true republic, there's one key element that must be enshrined in the Constitution. So taking the name republic in a country's name does not make it a republic at all. There are many countries, for example, China. China is called the People's Republic of China. And China is as far from a republic as you could possibly get, because China does not respect the individual rights, the individual sovereignty of its citizens. And so China is not a republic. Just like Barbados is not a republic, and Guyana is not a republic. And America has become less and less and less of a republic. A true republic, a true republic is a nation which is ruled by laws that permanently protects the minority from the majority and from any form of oligarchy by respecting and protecting the sovereignty of every individual equally. A true republic is a nation which is ruled by laws that permanently protects the minority from the majority and any possibility of oligarchy by respecting and protecting the sovereignty of every individual equally. If that is not what Andrew Holness is coming with, we will not have a republic. We will have simply a fake republic and a maintenance of the same system which is making our lives hard and miserable today. A real republic protects the life, the liberty, and the property rights of every citizen from every other citizen by the rule of law, which limits government to its proper role of providing a safe, clean, and orderly society where all are free to live, earn, and retire with dignity. Do you have that in Jamaica today? No, you don't. Will you have that tomorrow when Andrew and Mark are finished with their new system by simply declaring a republic by removing the queen and having some ceremonial president in place? No. You will still have the same unsafe, unclean, disorderly, lacking of freedom Jamaica, where you cannot live, you cannot earn, and you cannot retire with dignity in your own country. We'll continue to have the brain drain, and we'll continue to have oligarchs in charge, and we'll continue to suffer the results of such an arrangement. So do not be fooled. Andrew and Mark and their parties, which are two colonial forces, cannot be trusted to give us a real republic. They do not understand the proper role of government. In fact, it's not even that they don't understand. They are not prepared to respect the proper role of government. They're not interested in the proper role of government because the proper role of government would take away their power and their access to our resources and return that power and access to we the people so that we can start enjoying real prosperity from the efforts of our labor. The proper role of government in a true republic or a free society is to protect the life, the liberty, and property rights of every citizen equally. Therefore, the purpose of the Constitution in a true republic is to protect every individual from government, believe it or not. So while the government's role is to protect your rights and freedom, the purpose of a constitution is to protect you from the government. So in a true republic, the constitution is written properly to make sure that Andrew Holness could not do what he's doing now. For example, locking up people for protesting against his actions. Yeah? In a true republic, he would not be able to do that because he would be a servant of the people and not a master of the people. And so he would not be able to violate the rights of Jamaicans. He couldn't dare seek to inject you against your will. He couldn't dare lock your students out of school. He couldn't dare lock down your business and cause you to lose your job or to lose your company. In a true republic, the government becomes the servant of the people because the Constitution properly limits government to its right role and empowers you to be the best that you can be by providing a safe environment from criminals who might want to use force and fraud against you, so that you can be as productive and as engaging and as free as is possible, to the extent that you cannot use force or fraud against your fellow citizens. In other words, when government is properly limited, the people are free to live, they're free to learn, they're free to produce in peace, in safety, and are thus able to enjoy a free market of ideas and free trade with each other and with others voluntarily without government manipulating them, stealing their wealth through inflation or taxation, or doing anything to give one group of them benefits over another. Now, through a careful study of politics in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and other countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America, I have developed a system of governance that we call a non-partisan constitutional republic. This system ensures good governance in any country that adopts it. The UIC non-partisan constitutional republic, or UNCR, begins with the premise that we all have the natural born rights to be free, and that as such, we're all sovereign individuals, and none of us is more sovereign than any other. So you'll never hear us in the UIC respecting or acknowledging anybody that claims they're royal. We know better than that. Nobody is more royal than you or me. Nobody is more sovereign than you or me. We are sovereign, and we're as royal as it gets. And we have no right to be any lord or governors over anybody else. Therefore, in the UIC system of non-partisan constitutional republic, government exists to protect our individual and our collective sovereignty, and the Constitution exists to protect us from government by clearly limiting its powers to prosecute all who tries or actually uses force or fraud to take the life, the liberty, or property of someone else. Government itself may not initiate force or fraud against anyone, and may only use retaliatory force to protect the individual and the collective sovereignty of every citizen. The political process that we have in mind for Jamaica is one that is designed to achieve real representation and to prevent manipulation of the citizens by anyone, by any group, or any government, domestic or foreign. And that is what makes the UIC's proposals so profound and so different than anything you have ever seen on the planet. We have taken the time to develop a system that is not only good for Jamaica, it is good for any country, anywhere in the world, because we understand what good governance is. Now, of course, you might be wondering, why am I so confident? Why am I so sure about this? And it's because I've taken the time. It's been 10 years of work to make sure that we have a system that will work for the Jamaican people and that can work for any other country. It's because we understand that you are the most important element in the system of governance. It's not the prime minister. It's not the president. It's not the chief justice. All these institutions exist to serve you, or should exist to serve you. Currently, they don't. They don't exist to serve you. In fact, I'll show you how the system actually works. Take a look at this. I'm going to show you a picture of how the system actually works. And I'm hoping I can get this up because I haven't used it for a while, but I want to show you a picture of how it works. Let me see if I can find it here. Here it is. And let me see if I can get this up, because when you understand how the system really works, did you see it? I think I brought it up for a second and it went. Let me try again. Let me see here. Are you able to see it? Let me know. Can you see the presentation? It's a PowerPoint. Can you see it on your screen? Let me know. Let me see here. I am not sure if you're able to see it. Cancel. Were you able to see it? Let me know. Were you able to see the image just now? Let me try again. One more time. No. Okay, let me try here. All right. Just a second. Window. Here we go. Window. Here we go. Come on. All right. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting it up here. Not sure why, but It's not quite working for me today. But let me explain it to you anyways. So I'll give you an idea of one of the problems that we have here. You see, it's a big problem we're having in Jamaica right now. The current system, the colonial model that we have in place, is designed with some inherent corruption in it. Okay. First of all, the system we have today immediately destroys our mental faculty by placing at the very top of the system the Queen of England as our sovereign. So just by that one that one factor, it has already demolished the minds of our little children, who then become parents, who then become political and business leaders, because the mind is already depreciated. Do you notice that how weak our intellectuals are? They can talk a lot. They can go on talk shows and they can talk forever. And so whether it's, Mutty Perkins or Ronnie Thwaites or you name it, we have all these beautiful intellectuals in Jamaica. And they can sit on radio, they can go on television, they can put on their ties and their jackets and their stockings and their high heels and their lipsticks, and they can come on and they can give a wonderful dissertation. They can talk your head off about what's wrong and what should be done. But they will do nothing. They will not put themselves on the firing line. They will not join the battle fully. Instead, if they ever decide to get involved in politics, where do they go? They go right to one of the two colonial parties. Tell me if I lie, me a tell. Tell me if it's lie, me a tell. If I not so it go. All of our wonderful intellectuals or bright people who you see on radio and television talking off their heads, they can tell you everything that's wrong with Jamaica. They can tell you probably what should be done, but they will not get up off their behinds and get involved and actually throw these two colonial parties out and fix Jamaica. Why won't they do that? Because they are comfortable with remaining in the system. They don't like it. They talk about it. They'll say they don't like it and they talk about it, but they will actually not do anything. You watch. They will sit there on the radio and they will talk and talk and talk. Whether it's Muta Baruka or you name it, they will talk and talk and talk. Buju Banton, they will talk and talk and talk. I have so much respect for Tanya Stevens because she got up off the talking show and came down and said, listen, I am going to stand with the UIC because we need to do something to fix this. But most of our intellectuals, they just talk. They use the Queen's English and they just speak and they continue. Why is this? Because they have been brainwashed. They have been brainwashed into thinking that talking about the problem is enough, while deep down they still have a bit of reverence and respect for these royalties that when they come to Jamaica, they die to go and sit at their feet. They die to be in their presence. They long for the invitation to be a part of the party. And that's what's most important to them, the optics, the show, not actually getting up and getting out there and leading the masses to overthrow the system and make sure we have a true republic. They don't want to do that. So they keep talking. And the reason for that is because of what I just said a while ago. The system begins with the Queen of England at the top of the system. You check it out. And at the top of the system, it says, yeah, the Queen is sovereign and the rest of you are a bunch of dodos. Yeah? So that's the first thing. Now, once that idea is cemented in the mind, everything else goes downhill from there. Everything else. Because now you cannot think clearly. So what happens from there? Here's what the system tells us next. It says, okay, the people of Jamaica will vote. The people will go out and vote. This is the current system now that we're talking about. The people can go and vote. What can they vote for? Well, first of all, we, the nobles, the bright, brilliant ones, we will give them two parties from which to choose. And we, the great elites of this society, will fund those two parties and give the peasants the right to choose between those two parties. Now, the peasants don't realize what is happening, you see, because the peasants have not received a proper education. The peasants have been given an education that says you must bow down and worship the Queen of England, and you must also bow down and worship the elites. And once you know your place, here's what you do. We, the elites, will fund two options and put those two options in front of you, and you will choose one of them. It really doesn't matter which of them you choose, because we, the oligarchs, will still be in charge, because if either of them doesn't do what we want, we will simply pull the funding and bring them back in line. And that is what has been going on for 78 years straight. Because this system that they have in place also comes with a privately funded campaign mechanism. And the people with the most money gets to control the options that are placed in front of you. And then you, now thinking that you're voting in a democracy, go out and vote for your option, and then you give legitimacy to those options, and then say, yes, we represent the will of the people. Well, guess what? As of today, the will of the people represents 21% of the people. That's how democracy has failed us in Jamaica. That's how the Westminster model has failed us, because the government we have today was elected by 21% of eligible voters. Yeah? 21%. Now, subtract 21% from 100%. How much is that? 79% of the nation is not in favor of this government, but they're being ruled by this government because such is the result of a democracy, so-called. If you had a republic, this so-called 21% government would not have been able to destroy the lives and livelihoods of so many people, because it would have been contained. But the current system creates that kind of setup for us that allows 21% of the people who are tricked into voting at all to vote for what we have today. Now, let's take this further. The system that we have today gives the prime minister, the leader of the winning party, that's the prime minister. You didn't elect the prime minister. You did not elect the leader of your government. Okay? The leader of your government was selected in the back rooms of the parties based on the movements of the power brokers and those with the money, who then dictates who will be the leader of your party, and that person automatically becomes the head of your government, and you had no say in the matter. Yes, you voted in an indirect way, but you did not really vote for the leader of government, the head of government. That was forced upon you by the design of the Constitution, of the design of the game that they brought forward. I hope you see what I'm saying here. I hope you understand. Now, there's much more to it. We're going deeper. Okay? We're going deeper into this. Right? So, after you now elect this party and its leader become the head of government, that person gets almost dictatorial powers on a number of fronts. First of all, the prime minister under the current system is able to appoint the majority of the senators. Now, there are 21 senators, and he's allowed to appoint 13 persons, and he may appoint anybody he wishes. There is practically no check or balance as to who he appoints. It's totally up to him who he appoints. And so he appoints 13. The leader of the second party, the one that failed and is second place, the one that is also funded by the PSOJ elites, he gets to choose the next 8. So these two party leaders gets to decide who sits in the Senate. And they have complete discretion in who sits in your Senate, who will have kind of like the final say on the laws that goes through. These two men or women gets to dictate who sits in your Senate. Now think about that carefully. They can appoint anybody they wish, any friend, any business leader that has funded their campaign will say, listen, I want to try my hand at politics now, Put me in the Senate, man. So the people them can see my face and get used to me. And when the next election come, they can vote for me. That's what's going on here. Or if they find a little young one who look like a star and they say, yeah man, him look good. We understand. We can manipulate him brain. We can control him. Yeah man, let's put him in the Senate and give him some face time, and then we can move him to a seat and let him run and win, and then him come into the parliament. You understand? So what does this mean? It means that your senators are not there to work for the people of Jamaica. The senators are there as puppets and rubber stamps of the leaders of the two parties, which you did not elect. You elected the party, yes, by virtue of the individual MPs, but you're stuck with the leader. And the leader normally is the product of the game players behind the scene. And they now have selected the senators, which occupies what is called the upper house in your legislature. Yeah, in the legislative assembly. Those who will make the laws are handpicked rubber stampers from the leaders of the two parties that occupy government and opposition, two parties which are funded by the oligarchs from the PSOJ, who control the party by virtue of their funding, and better yet, control the leaders of those parties by virtue of the behind the scene systems that gets the leader to become the leader. Are you following me? Are you seeing what we're talking about here? Are you seeing how dangerous this is? Are you realizing what kind of government we have been under for the last 78 years? Are you seeing why there is no motivation to change the system to serve you, the people? Do you see why Andrew Holness and Mark Golding wants to keep the system? And yes, they will only adjust because the UIC is pressuring them. The UIC is pressuring them, even though we don't have the money, we don't have the big money from the PSOJ, it's little money we're getting from people, even though we are not as powerful as them in terms of backing from the PSOJ, little UIC is pressuring them now because we're waking up the people. We're waking up the minds of the people. The people are beginning to see what is going on, because without airtime on television, without airtime on radio, we're still reaching the people through social media, through this kind of forum here, and the people are gradually hearing and listening to the UIC. Yes. And so the time has come now for us to mash up this system and raise up a true republic named Jamaica, and make that true republic show our friends in Africa how they can rebuild Africa and make it great, and how the rest of the Caribbean can move away from this so-called Westminster model, from this colonial foolishness that has been robbing us of our time, robbing us of our energy, and robbing us of our resources. But I don't finish yet. I want you to understand the system even more. So remember I tell you, the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, they get to appoint the 21 members of the senators. The Prime Minister the Prime Minister appoints, without any form of serious checks or balances, the 13 members of the 21 senators. The opposition leader appoints the other 8. Now, because of this way of getting into the Senate, these senators will not do the job of holding the Prime Minister or holding the government properly accountable. These 21 senators, the 13 appointed by the Prime Minister, all 13 of them are hoping and praying that the Prime Minister will give them a plump assignment as a Minister of Government, just like he did with Roel Reid. take him out of the school principalship, put him into the Senate, and then make him Minister of Education and show him the ropes how he can thief from the nation. Yeah? Okay. And of course, there's no way that Ruel Reid would have been appointed to the Senate if the Prime Minister did not feel that in Ruel Reid he has somebody that's going to do the kind of things the Prime Minister wants done. And then to bring him into the cabinet by making him a minister. Okay? So now the Senate is compromised. The Senate cannot do its job. The Senate doesn't have any independence. The Senate is not free to think for itself. The Senate is corrupt. The Prime Minister, by virtue of how he became Prime Minister, is corrupt. The parties, by virtue of how they became visible to the people of Jamaica to get elected, they are corrupt. So it's a massive corruption enterprise that has been built. Let's now move our attention over to the 63 members of Parliament. The majority of those MPs are the ones who form the government by virtue of them being a part of the winning party. Every one of those MPs are hoping for one thing and one thing only. They're hoping and praying that the Prime Minister will appoint them to a ministerial position so they'll have access to power, access to money, and access to corruption. Yeah. So look at this system carefully. The Queen, as head of state, mentally corrupt the nation. The people not really having a true representational system because the parties before them are only before them because the private sector, the oligarchs, the elite, put those parties in before them. So the people are not really seeing clearly. Even though they think they're seeing clearly, they're not seeing clearly. What they're seeing is what the PSOJ elites want them to see. And then now the Senate is corrupt, as I just explained, because of its very design. And now the MPs are also corrupt because of the same design. The MPs, every one of them are hoping to be a minister of government. And they can only become a minister of government if they behave themselves. If they behave themselves, then the Prime Minister will appoint them to a ministerial position, which will come with the power, bigger pay, more status, access to money. Yeah. So these people who should have been making our laws and holding the executive branch of government accountable are themselves a part of the executive. So now they cannot hold themselves accountable properly because they're compromised on so many levels. Yes, you might say, well, there's an opposition party in there and the opposition should hold them accountable. Please, think about it. The mere fact that you're called the opposition emasculates you because then everybody knows that you're going to just oppose. And over time, because of how corrupt the system is, gradually the opposition and the government are just as corrupt, and now they have to spend their time trying to argue which of the two are the more which are the two is the most corrupt, which one is more corrupt than the other. Yeah. Which one is more corrupt than the other one? So that becomes the end result. And then we, the people, now, guess what we do? We gradually pull out of the system. We move away from it. We stop voting. And when we stop voting, what happened? Only the most corrupt will win. Only the most corrupt will win. The two parties will, guess what? The PSOJ can start spending less money, to hold them together because there's less people to buy, less votes to buy. And the parties will have less people to try and fool because only a smaller number now. So now it's down to their base. Yeah, who have the stronger base. And so eventually now the country is fully turned over to the oligarchs, and the rest of us just resign ourselves to the reality and give up and then continue to live. Yeah. We just continue to live after that. We just, try to survive. But guess what? Big mistake. As we retreat from the system, all that's going to happen is that we're going to be taxed more for less. Taxed more for less. Our lives get harder because the wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few. So you have 10% of the nation having 90% of the wealth, and the other 90% of the nation has to subsist on 10% of the wealth. Poverty, poverty, poverty. Yeah? Serious problems. Serious problems as a result. But I'm not finished yet. I want you to understand how this pans out. The fact that the Prime Minister now controls the Senate and controls the House of Representatives and control the executive branch of government means that he is the king of corruption, but not by himself. He does need a group of people to support him, and that's what is called the oligarchy. So the oligarchy are a number of key kingpin players. You have people like, let's say the banking cartels and the leaders of that. Let's say the retail industry and the leaders of that. Let's say the insurance industry and the leaders of that. Let's say the pharmaceutical industry, maybe internationally, and the leaders of that, and so on. And they form the core group, and then they just work together, including corrupting the judiciary, like we've seen. For example, my arrest for breaking the for breaking the DRMA and the Public Order Act. My arrest for that, because I refused to seek permission to protest and walk in my own country. I was arrested and charged, and they were able to decide to just push my trial date out to well, not my trial, but my case with the Supreme Court, to say my rights have been violated. They pushed it out to 2024 in an attempt to weaken a political opponent. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we have here going on. But let me take a few questions before I go on now to the UIC system of governance, because I want you now to understand what we're proposing. So I've told you what's wrong with the system in short. There's much more to it, but I've given you basic overview. Um, and yes, that's right. I didn't break any. Well, I broke their law, but I didn't break the moral law. I was doing what is right. Um, uh, so let me see here. Do we have any questions for me before I move into the UIC solution? And I'm just going to touch that briefly, right? I'm going to touch that very briefly, and at a later date we're going to some more discussion on that. So the UIC system overcomes all of these problems. In our system, there's no queen at the top of our system. What's at the top of the UIC system is a constitution of Jamaica that represents and reflects the will of the people, which is for every single one of you to be sovereign. So the people are sovereign. And therefore, we will have the rule of law instead of the whims of men. And the rule of law will protect your sovereignty permanently. And in the process of doing the election, what we're going to have is a non-partisan, publicly funded campaign system and direct elections by residents of their fellows. And so in our system, there is no private funding in the political process. Every single candidate that offers themselves to run goes through a process to show that they're competent and qualified to serve. And once they meet the criteria of that process, they then are given equal access to radio, equal access to television, equal access to the internet, equal access to town hall meeting, and equal access to debates. And then the people, having the benefit of fact checkers, will be able to then make their decision without all the fanfare and all the expenses and without the risk. And they will be able to elect their representatives. Our Senate will be fully elected. One senator per parish elected by the people of their parish, not appointed by politicians or by party leaders. The president of Jamaica, instead of a prime minister, will be nationally elected by the people of Jamaica to serve as the head of government. We will have three vice presidents, one from each of the counties, Cornwall, Middlesex, and Surrey, to serve in the executive branch of government. The members of parliament or representatives will be elected based on their community, and they must live in the community from which they're going to come. Neither senators nor MPs will be able to serve as ministers of government. We're going to have only subject matter experts, professionals, which will be nominated by the core executive branch of our government. Those nominees will go before the Senate in a public hearing where the Senate can vet them publicly in front of all Jamaicans to show that these persons have the competencies and the qualities to serve in the respective office to which they have been nominated by the executive core branch, the president, the three vice presidents, and so on. Once they are vetted publicly, the Senate will then make a recommendation to the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives will have the chance to simply vote yes or no to appoint that person to the ministerial portfolio. Once the person is elected by the House to serve in that portfolio, the president cannot remove them unless he comes back to the Senate, makes his case, the Senate investigates the situation, and then makes a recommendation to the House again. This will mean protection for those who are so elected. It will ensure that it's transparent, and it will remove the possibility of corruption caused by the president or any such leader having unfettered powers. Yeah. So now you're going to have an executive branch made up of the president, the three vice presidents, the general secretary, the treasury secretary, which is the minister of finance, and all those who have now been elected through the nomination process, the Senate and the House, now serving in a separate body called the executive. They will not be in the legislative branch. So what you're going to have now is the senators will be very focused now on the actions of the executive branch to make sure that their respective parishes are being taken care of properly. They will have no special ties with the president, no special arrangements because they have no access to the executive branch in terms of getting ministerial portfolios. They were not appointed by the president. They're not beholden to the president. They're now beholden to the people of their parish. The same thing for the MPs. Now that they cannot be appointed as ministers and they have no special affinity with the president or with the executive branch, they can now provide proper oversight in a quest to ensure that their respective constituencies are being dealt with fairly and properly in the due course of governance. This, my friends, is going to ensure that Jamaica has one of the most outstanding system of checks and balances the world has ever seen. The same process will apply to selecting Supreme Court judges and ensuring that our judiciary is separate and apart from the executive branch and from the legislative branches, and this will ensure that Jamaica will have the kind of government that all of us want, which is a government which is properly focused, which is limited in its scope, and which will provide the kind of products and services that the Jamaican people need to succeed. I could say more, but I'm going to pause there because I think it's time that I really take some questions from you before we close off for tonight. I have about 14 minutes to go, or 15. So, any questions? Let me see here. Mr. Patterson, you are a God-given gift to Jamaica, and I am elated and honored to be part of your future governance. Thank you, Austin Waite. Much appreciated. Mr. Waite is one of our candidates as well. JJ says, we have never had these discussions with our government yet. They win and do what they want. Absolutely. So they have no interest in discussing this with you because they want to keep you in the dark. Sir KB says, UIC Liberty TV, how would you have tackled the rising gas prices? Well, good question. our approach to dealing with all of the issues, whether it's gas prices or food prices or whatever, is through what we've said before. One, we have to make Jamaica energy independent by investing in alternative energy sources, from hydroelectricity to solar electricity to biogas electricity to geothermal energy. Once we have done that, then the price of energy would be lower, and therefore the dependence on foreign oil would be lower, and so we'll be able to have better prices. Now remember, gas prices is also a function of the external markets, right? But in Jamaica, we have gasoline tax, which are horrendous because our government is sucking so much out of us. So we would have chopped the gasoline taxation so that you don't have that additional burden being placed on the Jamaican people in addition to the market forces. Um, Solar power system is going wild in Africa, says JJ. Exactly. We're very behind in that in Jamaica because our government has just not paid attention to real development here. They do a lot of announcements, but do not really deliver in terms of really, making a difference. Lion Rule says that's the way forward. No distractors. Absolutely. Lou Carr is asking, how will the municipal government work? Very good question. The UIC believes that Jamaica is too small to have two levels of government. Our friends in Singapore were very smart to really downsize the government and make sure, for example, what do you need in a community in Jamaica? Any community. Every community needs good roads, good schools, community centers that actually works, public parks, proper water, proper electricity, proper street lights, proper sidewalks, proper street signs. We don't need to make this very complicated. We don't need to have a very big government. We just need to deliver on the things people need. You know, Jamaicans don't want a whole heap of politicians running up and down, having meetings, printing paper, sending emails, consuming money for offices and cars and so on. So the UIC is going to really shrink the size of government and focus on the products and services that you need to enjoy a decent living. So most Jamaicans don't care about local government. What they care about is, do I have water? Do I have electricity? Do I have internet access? Do I have proper sidewalks and street lights? Do I have a fixed address? Do I have, my garbage being picked up? Do I have proper schools? Do I have proper hospitals and clinics to go to? Let's deal with those and not try to create a massive amount of government just to say we have local versus central. Let's just have government that works for the people and not a whole heap of government to talk about. Eh? I'm so tired of seeing every morning I wake up, every day it's politics and government making one announcement or the other. Stop the announcement, man. Get the job done. Let's get the work done and stop this whole heap of politics and focus on getting the quality infrastructure and services in place and deliver for the people of Jamaica. That's what we need. Um, uh, Conroy says 90% win for the UIC. Thank you. JMate says one Congress. Sir Patterson, can the education tax be substituted for a new tax that will ensure more is spent on student achieving? Smart and Douglas, thank you. The UIC has a different approach to taxation. We're not going to play the game with you of having a plethora of taxes, this whole heap of taxes. Right now, I see Andrew is beginning now to borrow from our manifesto and is beginning to talk about, combining some of the taxes and so on. That's a good start. But let's do the real thing. So the UIC will only have two taxes in Jamaica. All other taxes will go away. No more taxes, just two. Income tax and sales tax. And those two taxes have different avenues. The income tax, which is going to be tax on income from all sources for everyone, no matter whether you're rich or you're poor. So every Jamaican is going to pay 10% on their income from all sources. Every Jamaican. We strongly believe that everybody must pay tax because everybody wants roads. Everybody wants a clean environment. Everybody wants nice public parks and playgrounds for the kids. So let's all pay our fair share to make that happen. So a 10% income tax applied across the board to every single person, whether you have a job or not, it doesn't matter. You'll file your taxes every year and you will pay 10% on your income from all sources. And if you don't declare your taxes, then you're going to pay a much bigger income tax on the income that you did not declare. All persons, all companies, 10% tax. Okay. Then we have that 10% tax is going to serve the interest of making sure we have a safe, clean, and orderly environment so that you can go about your business in peace and safety and comfort right across the country, east to west, north to south. Uh, just a beautiful Jamaica. That's your 10% income tax. The 10% sales tax is going to be exclusively for eliminating poverty and protecting the environment and saving for emergency. So three main things coming out of that 10% income tax, 10% sales tax. We're going to have an emergency fund, so we never have any big surprises that we can fund and take care of. So an emergency fund. We're going to have an environmental fund, so we can make sure we make Jamaica top notch in terms of being environmentally friendly, both to us and with the animals and plant life and other life that we share this beautiful country with. We're going to maintain the biodiversity and so on. But most importantly, the 10% sales tax is going to ensure that we have the best possible education for our children, that we have the best health care for them, that they have good housing, that every family in Jamaica becomes a property owner and have a decent home that the kids can grow up in. No more zinc fences, no more ghettos, no more garrisons. We're going to wipe out all of that and make Jamaica one of the prettiest countries on the planet. From Montego Bay to Morant Bay, from what do you call it now, Treasure Beach to Ocho, right? We're going to make all of Jamaica a beautiful garden, a garden island and we're going to make tourism completely accessible across the entire country. So no more of these all-inclusive hotels as the primary targets. We're going to make sure we have an all-inclusive tourism package based on the community tourism model that allows the environment to be such that tourists can get right throughout the island and enjoy all of it. But guess what? Not just the tourists. We, the Jamaican people, will have a beautiful island, beautiful parks, beautiful streets, beautiful roads, wonderfully maintained landscape that we, the people of Jamaica, enjoy because we respect ourselves and we respect our people. I am so sick and tired of seeing us fixing up Jamaica when so-called royals are coming or when other dignitaries are coming. We're fixing up. We're suddenly realize that the old fence looked bad and the road looked bad and we want to clean up now for strangers to come. Stop it. It is wrong. It is diabolical. It is a disrespect and disregard for the people of this country. And these governments, PNP and GLP, they have no respect for the people of Jamaica. No regards. They only have respect for royals, so-called royals coming in, for presidents of other countries coming in. And they have great respect for the big money elites. They will make sure that their environment is kept proper. Yes. Now we have to stop that. We have to make sure that all of Jamaica is proper for all Jamaicans. We have to respect the Jamaican people and give the Jamaican people a home here in Jamaica. The entire island must be kept properly. So under UIC government, you're going to see a clean and green environment. You're going to see a beautiful Jamaica that all Jamaicans can feel like they're in a tourist resort, whether it's in Tivoli, whether it's in Macook's whether it's in Gibbon in Clarendon, whether it's in Bogue in St. Elizabeth, or Brace River, or Silo, or Santa Cruz. It doesn't matter. We're going to make sure that the entire Jamaica is a beautiful, beautiful place, much better than anywhere in Florida you could ever go and see. We can do it. We're going to create thousands of jobs by doing that. We're going to make sure Jamaica is pretty and clean and decent for us to enjoy. So, um, having said all of that, I think I'm running out of time. I have 5 minutes. Let me see if I can take any more questions. Uh, yes, so-called royals. That's correct. One Jamaica, Ken Francis. Absolutely. We can do it. I agree, Ken. If Jamaica can afford JPS have the fifth highest electricity rate in the world, absolutely, we can't afford that. We need to switch. Conroy Bauer says UIC for my money. Absolutely, mine too. I've spent a lot on it already. Actually, how would you build a platform for micro businesses? Winston Hammond is asking. My gosh, now you're talking my language, um, Winston Hammond. Now, I've spent a number of years working with an organization called Oiko Credit International. I was the chairman for, I was elected twice as chairman of the board. The fund is about $146 billion that is invested in Asia, sorry, Africa, Asia a little bit, South America, the Caribbean a little bit, Haiti in particular, and we invested heavily in micro enterprises, helping the small man to achieve his maximum potential by providing, low cost loans and uh, lending terms that allow them to be able to pay this back and grow their businesses. A UIC government is going to be very, very friendly to small business. If you are an entrepreneur in Jamaica under the UIC, you're going to be the happiest person on earth because our system is committed to making sure that you have all the support you need to succeed. Technical support, financial support, capital support in terms of space and access. So we're going to create an environment that is going to push the entrepreneur, that's going to support the entrepreneur to achieve his maximum potential. Education, training, especially in financial intelligence, market intelligence, product design, product development. I'm going very fast because I'm running out of time. But seriously, the platform for the micro and small business environment under a UIC government will be the regulations. We're going to get rid of all the barriers to entry. Anything which is preventing you from being able to start and grow your business in a UIC Jamaica will be taken out of the way. Anything. Big business will no longer have a monopoly on the markets in Jamaica and access to external markets. We're going to make it easier for small and micro business to get their products out of Jamaica, to get access to technology coming in. We're talking about removing the duties from the technologies that you need so you can get those technologies at comparable price so that you can compete with your external competitors. Right now the system is skewed against you because you have to compete with external competitors by buying technology at a higher price coming into Jamaica, which is ridiculous, right? So you have to buy it at a higher price to compete with them because your government is not working with you. So we're going to try to make sure you can get access to markets and access to technology at a cheaper price so that you can in turn produce and be able to compete on the global market stage. Any more questions? Let me see here. We need to get back planting rice again, especially in the countryside, land of food and water. Thank you for that, Janet. We shall definitely look into that. Mr. Patterson, how would you stop the friction of other islands towards Jamaica? Well, um, my plan personally is for us to become more integrated as a region and for us to move towards becoming one state. So we will look at what the frictions are, what's causing the frictions, and a lot of it is misunderstanding. A lot of it is just the way that we have cultured our peoples. And so I will do my best to bridge the gap. I think the best way to bridge the gap is to be successful. If Jamaica becomes successful, we'll have the respect of our peers, we'll have the respect of the world. So let's begin by first making sure that Jamaica becomes a solid economic powerhouse in the Caribbean again. And then the only way to do that is by implementing what I spoke about earlier on. We need to empower our people, we need to liberate our people, we need to create an environment that is supportive of our people so that they can succeed. So we're going to do that, and we're going to make a new Jamaica that will, be a leader in not only the Caribbean but globally, because we're going to show the world what it means to have a true republic. So, with that being said, I think now is a good time for me to say to you, thank you so very much for tuning in to UIC Liberty TV tonight. And until next time, I want you to remember to always choose liberty. Thanks and have a good night. Take